Jacob here with Abe Coaching, and there's just something I wanted to talk about today. Being that it's Memorial Day, I just think it's appropriate to talk about it, right? I'm a retired Army veteran, combat veteran, and there's a few things I think sports, athletes, veterans, and soldiers, they all have in common. Not that they did the same things or have the same experience, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about Memorial Day and then go into the reason why sports really were kind of invented and thrust forward into the worldwide stadium of competition, right? So Memorial Day, going to war, remember those fallen soldiers, remember the sacrifices that everyone made. You don't have to agree with war. I'm not saying that. You don't have to be super crazy patriotic or nothing. You can just mourn the losses of the families and the people that experience those things. If it's yourself or someone you know or whatever, just be aware that we are all, blessed in our own way, and we all have something and things to be very grateful for. So with that being said, let's go into the history a little bit of why sports and wartime are so affiliated with each other, right? So as you go through history, sports were kind of invented more so as a blood sport or whatever, to get away from, hey, two kingdoms are going to go to war to claim whatever. Is kind of like there was challenges or duels. Hey, your best against my best, and it was all in the concept of preserving youth and life. Um, it was the idea of, hey, why have thousands of people go to battle when we can have our best battle each other real quick and make a spectacle out of it. And then we got more civilized and it evolved, right? And then you go, instead of just dying in the dirt somewhere, it's Roman Colosseums, right? Which is still dying in the dirt somewhere, but it became games and events for worldwide podiums or strength of people to come through and perform certain abilities to free competition, right? So people could compete to claim dominance. And then again, we get more evolved as time goes on. There's a lot in there. I'm just trying to hit a few points going forward. And then as time keeps going and going and going and progressing, what we find out is that sports took over instead of wartime. It's not blood sports anymore, right? And then we traverse, thousands of years into the future or whatever, and we have and now we have the ability for like the Olympics or athletic competition against each other. Competition itself is not bad, and that's what I want to say for our youth and our athletes and our professionals or whatever the case may be. Going forward, we need to teach them what healthy competition is. It helps you drive, it helps you push, even if it's just with yourself, right? That's why I love running as a sport, because I don't run races to beat people. I run races to beat myself. That's my own mind, my own breath, my own feet on the pavement. I get a chance to outperform myself. I get to see in real world scenario myself grow, right? I can read books and I can get smart, and that's great, and that knowledge is power. And I'm not saying that you only do it in one way. I'm just saying an easy way to see yourself grow is through physical ability. So as our athletes are developing into the people they're going to be, and into the places they're going to seed themselves to grow and compete, every competition is essentially a battle, and we want to teach them to be at the upper hand of their battle and to put themselves in the best position to battle it out, right? So again, coming back to baseball, right, every at bat is a battle. You're battling the ball, the pitcher, the mental game, the people in the stands, your coaches, your parents. You're battling and you're trying to survive, right? Hit the ball, get on base, whatever the case, score a run, hit a home run, whatever your goal is. We want to teach our kids, one, to have attainable goals, two, to not be scared to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, and three, to not be okay with losing. So I'm not that coach. It's like, hey, win no matter what, right? That's not my concept. My concept is more of be who you're going to be, show your character in and out, and win through character building concepts. Because I use baseball and coaching to teach life. I learned so much about life through sports, through battle, through combat, right? We don't want to have to get to the combat stage, but as young adults, they don't have many stages where they can actually show themselves, where they can show themselves how much they've grown, how much they've progressed, what they can and cannot do, what they're ready for, and what they need to strive for. And those are all very important things to understand within yourself. So again, Memorial Day is for remembering those, who made sacrifices. So the rest of us either didn't have to or didn't want to or whatever the case. Again, you don't have to like war. I'm just telling you the history of where sports and the idea of the Olympics came from, right? You put all the nations on a platform and let them compete in a way to where we don't have to ruin youth and destroy life, right? More civilized. So sports are the civilized version of these blood games that they used to play in the past. And the only way to make it through that and again, not everyone cares about being dominant, but you should in some sense. Everyone should have some sort of dominant nature in the way that they think or the way that they perform. I don't care if it's chess, violin, piano. I don't care. It could be reading. You could be a competitive speed reader, speed shooter. I don't care. You are competitive in something. It's just most people are only competitive when they think they can win. And that's the problem. We want to teach our youth to be competitive always, no matter what the circumstance is. We don't only want to show up when we think we're going to win, right? We should perform like we're going to win at all times. And if you think you're not going to win, you need to put yourself in the best possible scenario to win, which would be training harder than you actually play. If you practice hard and the game is easier, it means you're practicing correctly. If practice is easy and then in the game you're not doing so well, if you do so much better in practices than games, it means your practice is so much easier than the game. Your practice isn't challenging you anymore. You have to get out of that comfort zone and find ways to challenge yourself. So in the spirit of today being Memorial Day, I took my kids um, to some grave sites of old buddies, and we kind of sat there and just talked about them. We didn't really talk a lot about war or atrocities or hardships. We just talked about, hey, this is who this person was, and this is how they lived, and we honored their life in memory. And going forward, and I explained the hey man, this is why we compete. And everything that we do, we take it so seriously in competition. Competition is also fun because when you don't have to worry about your life being on the line, it's a lot of fun to enjoy pushing yourself. I've never been so proud of myself as to running farther than I ever thought I could, hitting the ball farther than I ever thought it would go, grabbing that ball out of the ground up, out of the dirt when I didn't think I had it, and then it was just in my hand, and I was like, wow, I surprised myself today. We're not teaching our athletes to compete for their coach. We're asking them to show up on a team and to do what they have to do to build the team and to find themselves in these actions to be solid, strong competitors, right? So, with all that being said, I just thought it was an appropriate day and an appropriate time to say, let's be dangerous, right? Not for combat, right? Let's be dangerous in every step that we take moving forward to be the ruthless, competitive athlete that we know we can be, right? In that mindset, I use words like dangerous and ruthless. I don't mean physically hurting people, not at all. I mean more so, if I'm going to attack that ground ball, I'm aggressively assaulting through the ball. If I'm throwing it to first base, I'm pushing my body weight through the ball to throw to first base. If I'm hitting that ball, I want to hit the laces off of it. But before I'm ready to do those things, I have to build the confidence and the competitive nature within myself, not to compete and win against other people, to compete and win against myself. The battle is I always say baseball is a game of 6 to 9 inches, right? Between your ears. Baseball is the game between your ears. It is not a game. You're not really playing others. You're playing yourself mentally. Everything's not super fast and hard and going and going and going. You got to think it through. You got to think it through. And there's other sports that are like that too. I'm not belittling nothing. It's just what I know the most about. So coming out of combat and into athletic and competition nature, as a young man, I believe competition was super, super important for me to develop the character of me to be able to be proud of myself as a young man growing into my older years. And I think that's true for all of our athletes as well. Let's help them build the mind body in the ways that they're going to be proud of themselves later. Let's not focus on us. You don't got to do it for me. Do it for you. Let's teach them that competing is important. To be a strong competitor is important because it'll keep your head up when the game goes sour, right? If you strike out or make a bad play, a weak competitor gives up, cries, gets emotional, throws something. You don't do that stuff in the game. That's weak emotion, right? We can have all the emotions in the world. We do not have to act on them in negative nature. If we let the game defeat us, the other team, which would be your enemy, right? They're watching and they see that weakness spewing out of you, and they in their head already know that they won. Well, we already destroyed his mindset. Now we're going to put him in the dirt through this game. We're going to really win this game because they're giving up already, right? You're not always facing some big other team or some impossible goal. We're facing ourselves. Look in the mirror and decide that you're going to be a strong competitive nature today. That you yesterday is not the you for every single day. You can grow, you can adapt, and you can mold to the situation and overcome your odds. So I just wanted to say that. I don't want to get too much into it. I could talk about this all day. But as a coach myself and working with a lot of youth lately, it really is apparent to me that they have so much stuff and they have the time, and their parents are super dedicated to the man, shout out to the parents really, because they're doing so much to make sure that their kids are getting to where they need to be at the right times, and they're very involved. They're sitting at practice, watching all practice, taking notes. Awesome. Couldn't ask for better parents in general. That's awesome behavior, man. No complaints. But at some point, we got to let the child decide how they're gonna grow. As a mentor, you cannot choose, I'm going to mentor you, you, and you, because all three of those people might not want to listen to you. I can choose to tell you what to do, and if you don't listen, I'm not really mentoring. I have to find a way as the mentor to reach all three perspective, mindsets, and personalities. And if I can find out what's important to them, I can find out how to help them grow, and I can learn them beyond the field, right? Using baseball to teach character is my primary and utmost responsibility. And I think that that should be true for every coach. If you do that correctly, you will build a competitive nature. And being competitive does not mean being mean or insulting or treating your rival team poorly or kicking dirt on their name. Being a strong competitor means when they fall, you pick them up. I'm going to teach you everything I know because I still know I'm going to put in the work to do it better than you. I'm not hiding secrets. I'm not trying to, only teach my son things that I'm not going to teach other kids. I teach everyone everything. And I know I have the confidence and the heart in me to look at my son. I know he will perform because I know his character. I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about these kids. I'm just worried about how I help them grow. And that's where it comes from, right? They got to see a competitive nature in the coach. But if I'm the coach, I can be competitive. But is it being competitive to a play goes wrong and I slap the dugout wall, or I stomp my feet, or I yell at the kid from across the field, or no, that's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. I mean, you can watch all the major league games you want and yelling, people crashing out, yelling at each other, and umpires yelling, people getting in your face, is screaming. Whatever, dude. They're getting paid millions of dollars to do this, and this affects their whole livelihood. I get it. Whatever stuff gets emotional, I don't want no part of that. And I'm not in that. That's not where I'm at, man. I was always taught that you can have emotions when it's done. You can see, I can be emotional about something and not let it affect my ability to perform the task in front of me. And knowing that it's a sport on a team, baseball, I know that if I strike out, I didn't get better by like, no, I'm never going to do that again. I hate striking out. That never got me anywhere. It made me mad. But when I truly started to develop as a human and as a ball player, I started feeling bad because I would look at my team and I would say, man, they were really counting on me right there, and I let them down. And you know what makes you feel better? When you have a loving mentality in a competitive natured sport, when you walk in the dugout and you're like, sorry guys, I let you down. And every single one of them's like, you didn't let us down. You had one little hiccup, man, but you made this play. You made that play. You hit a double last game. You won us this. Like, you didn't let us down. You just came up short this time. And then to watch one of the younger kids look at him and say, hey, listen, I'll hit a double this time. It'll make up for your single, my single, whatever. Hey, I'll pick up that slack. You're having an off game. No worries, man. You come through so much. So it brings me to one more point, and I'll wrap it up. I know it's been long already. Um, Stop putting your pressure on your top three best players. What I'm seeing now is, teaching competitive nature. I use that because it's not really competitive to rely on you're not being competitive to rely on your best players to let them carry you and the team as a coach. Like, how dare you? How dare you rely on that youth talent to get you through to the next spot? The competitive nature would be, hey, I have a bunch of kids that are ready to grow, but they're just not there yet. It's not clicking. So I got to find out how to make it click for them, right? Because that's your job as the leader in the situation, to see where knowledge is needed and provide it. Provide guidance. It is not to provide every little every little call to the point where they can't think for themselves. And that's where I'm kind of at with coaching. And I'm watching a lot of these youth coaches. The coaches are competitive, but the kids are not. The kids are so worried about pleasing the coach and doing what the coach says and watching the signals. They're losing the aspect of the game. The coach is calling all the plays, calling all the pitches, doing all the things. And this is several. I've seen this for the last year. I've seen this in almost everyone I've seen, everyone I'm looking at. And I'm like, and then I'll ask a simple IQ baseball question to the young athlete, and they'll just stare at me. And I'm like, we're not teaching them how to think for themselves. We're teaching them to do as they're told. When you're, 5 years old until you're 10 to 11, really 10, I understand. Teach them. And then over the years, they'll just pick it up on themselves. But when they're 13, 14, 15 years old, they need to start making calls and plays for themselves. And when I was on the bases growing up, if my coach didn't give me a steal sign, I was fast, extremely fast. So my coach told me, hey, man, you know the right call. If you think you can make it, take that risk. That's on you. Why aren't we having more conversations like that? And I want to say thank you to my coaches I had growing up. I know I didn't make it easy, and I see the difference now. So all that being said, right, I just wanted to walk through. Let's pay our respects for Memorial Day and the people that gave the sacrifice. And let's respect the sports going forward and the competitive nature going forward, because we don't want to regress in a culture and go back to war to prove it, right? Let's keep it on the stadium. Let's keep it on the stage. Let's keep it on the baseball arena. Let's keep it on the football field. Let's keep it on the soccer field, right? If we can compete that way in a more civilized way, a lot of us get to mourn a lot less. So with that being said, thank you for listening. I hope this helps. I hope you learned something. And if not, if you want to reach out and you want to teach me something, I'm all willing to learn whatever you got to give me. I really appreciate your time and energy to be here. I know it's been a long little talk. So thank you so much. And just remember, growth starts at failure. So fail up and fail forward. See you next time.